We are back with more Mountain Connections on this Tuesday. COVID-19 has created a loneliness pandemic. Many people are very socially isolated, especially those who are elderly or are compromised with their immunity in one way or another. So what can we do to help those to stay connected? Well, I spoke with Humana as well as Meals on Wheels recently. They've got some excellent suggestions for us. Let's take a look.
Many of us may be overwhelmed by information regarding the short and long-term health effects of COVID-19. There's a growing awareness that the virus isn't just affecting its victims, it's also affecting those who are staying isolated, trying to avoid it. With the shorter, darker days of the winter months making it even more difficult to feel connected to the world, it's more important than ever to find ways to connect and to speak out about our loneliness too. Here with some important information to help people remember they are far from alone is Andrew Renda, Associate VP of Population Health Strategy, Bold Goal at Humana, and Ellie Hollander, President and CEO of Meals on Wheels America. Thanks for joining us, Andrew and Ellie.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
Andrew, tell us about the health effects of prolonged isolation and loneliness and how the COVID-19 pandemic has really impacted both.
Absolutely. Well, first off, loneliness and social isolation are social determinants of health, and they impact your actual health. And in fact, they're considered to be more dangerous than smoking or being obese. A couple of quick statistics for you. If you're lonely, you have a 2 to 5 times higher risk of dying prematurely. You have a 50% increased risk of ending up in the emergency room, and you have double the risk of developing Alzheimer's or dementia. And even before the pandemic hit, 1 in 5 Americans was lonely. And now that we have quarantine and social distancing and lockdowns, it's up to 1 in 3. And that spans across age groups. And so if there's one takeaway, it's that anybody can be lonely, regardless of their circumstances and their age. And we need to normalize it, we need to speak about it, and we need to find new creative ways to connect.
And Ellie, what is Meals on Wheels doing to help people during this pandemic?
Well, Meals on Wheels programs have had to step up to a surge in need that is extraordinary. We're actually reaching 47% more seniors who are now homebound because of the pandemic than we were previously. So we've had to shift our model and convert some of our senior centers to drive-through, grab-and-go meal sites. And at the same time, we've had to shift our home meal delivery program so that we're not crossing the threshold into the home to protect the safety of everybody, but instead that we're making sure that we're having a verbal and visual check-in with that senior to make sure they're okay. And we augment that with telephone calls and in some cases written cards to make sure that those seniors know that they're not forgotten and that someone cares about their well-being. Because what we know is that for many Meals on Wheels recipients, the person delivering the meal or checking in on them may be the only personal interaction they have in a week. And this was the case before COVID ever hit. So as Andrew said, the important thing to remember is while we're staying physically distant, we need to be socially connected and not socially disconnected. And for our Meals on Wheels recipients, as important right now as that meal is, the companionship and the connections are even as important.
And Andrew, how is Humana helping to increase the social connectivity?
Sure. Well, first off, Humana's had a long history of addressing the social determinants of health, like loneliness and social isolation. It's kind of, we call it whole person health, the idea of addressing physical health, mental health, and social health. And we have things like neighborhoods and outing communities that will do exercise classes and educational classes. We've had to switch to virtual during the pandemic, of course. And we also have partnerships with organizations like Meals on Wheels so we can deploy interventions to address loneliness and food insecurity and other social needs. But the pandemic has made everything worse, as we all know. And so we wanted to launch a public health awareness campaign that we call Far From Alone. And it's the idea of educating people on the health impacts of loneliness, reducing the stigma of loneliness, and ultimately offering resources to help people better connect during the pandemic.
And Ellie, can you share some tips to help individuals thrive as quarantine unfortunately continues?
Yeah, it's really important for all of us to stay as mentally and physically active as we can. It can be as simple as just taking a walk inside if you need to, if weather doesn't permit, outside. checking in on somebody that you haven't been in touch with in a long time, or a neighbor, just to make sure that they're okay. We also have talked to folks that have done a great job of setting up these dinner parties, these virtual dinner parties with friends and family, where they pick a night and they pick a menu and they basically cook together and enjoy the meal together. Or a virtual book club where you get a bunch of friends together to kind of talk about the latest book that you've read. So there are really a lot of options available to folks, but we'd like to encourage people to go to farfromalone.com, which is a website that has a plethora of ideas and resources available, not only for people who are feeling disconnected and lonely, but also for those of us who really want to help others and need some new ideas on how to go about doing that.
And Andrew, is there anywhere else that we can get more information on this topic?
Sure. Well, it's like Ellie said, start with farfromalone.com. Loads of resources to help people. You can engage on social media through #FarFromAlone. And if you need to phone a friend, there's a friendship line, a phone number on the website where you can just call someone to have a friendly conversation.
Thank you so much, Andrew and Ellie, for talking with us here on Park City Television today about this important topic. We really appreciate this information.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.